Well, hello and welcome to another in the series of Café Insights. I'm Andrew Vine, the head of the Insight Bureau, and today my guest is Steve Stine. How are you?
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Great to see you. Now, Steve is a 30-year veteran of Asia. We first met, I think, when you were at IBM a long while ago, and you've had an interesting transition. You were a journalist, you've moved into technology as a technology executive, you were a strategy consultant, a headhunter, and now finally out on your own doing a few very interesting things, including being the founder of Inside Asia. So we'll talk about that in a little while, but it's quite a progression. And but what I think is it's a very powerful one too, because it does tie in so much wonderful experience that you've had personally, and I know you're joining the dots on what makes Asia and managers effective in the region. So really interested to talk to you about that. And it's nice that you're doing the interviewing quite a lot of the time for Inside Asia, and now I get to turn the tables. I'm interviewing you.
I love it. I love the questions. And to your point, some people would argue I have a bit of professional attention deficit disorder, and so therefore I just, after 3 or 5 years, I get bored and I move. But I think also part of it is just, Asia is a dynamic, fast-moving, always present. It's the opportunity that's presented itself through the years to do different things, and I've jumped at it. From startups to working with major corporates to being in advisory roles. It's really the content that has actually driven me point to point and role to role, and which brings me to why I introduced Inside Asia podcast, because there are so many extraordinary stories to be told in the region.
And these are, my Café Insights are very short. You go into a lot of detail. I mean, these things are like 30, 40 minutes long. Yeah, wonderful content.
My producer asked me to cut it down. They were about an hour each, but we realized the optimal point was 25, 35 minutes, and we do a little scripting and editing around it as well.
But you're getting sitting down with individuals talking about what basically makes Asia tick.
Yeah, that's right. I think I typically look for veterans, either Asians themselves or long-term expats who've been to the region, who have either domain expertise, geographic insights, have lived and operated and have something to say. So they're storytellers, but they also cut across all areas of specialization. We've done 120-plus episodes over 3 years, and it continues to... Yeah, it's rolling, and I think we have a wonderful captive audience. I'm very pleased with where it is. It's not a money-making venture, it's a passion. And by virtue of that passion and my access to these thought leaders, I've been able to kind of create a view on what Asia was and what it's becoming, and that's where I am today.
Well, I was going to ask you, having done all of these, what would you say as the, are the top issues that are on the minds of leaders in Asia? What would you say are the real emerging trends?
Yeah, well, I think absolutely it's about how to maintain and perpetuate growth. I think issues around what we call future fluent issues, whether it be artificial intelligence, the future of jobs, issues around sustainability. It's all kind of Asia leaders are starting to think about what the future holds for them and how they're going to address it. One of the most interesting parts that comes out in almost every podcast, one way or the other, is the ability of Asia corporations or organizations to leapfrog the West. That idea of taking an idea, learning from the West, and then just going further than anything. I mean, look at digital commerce, or look at digital payments, or look at some of the ways that incorporating different infrastructure projects. I mean, you name it. It's an extraordinary track record, and we try to flesh that out in our conversations.
Brilliant, yeah. And I know you've got a new collaboration with the Conference Board and the Centre for Creative Learning, and it's around purpose in business, purpose and profit. Right?
It did. This has been brewing for about 5 or 6 months for me, and I've been ravenously devouring and information on this and having conversations around the world. In August of last year, the Business Roundtable in the U.S. Issued a statement saying that no longer did they believe Milton Friedman's statement that at all cost a corporation should simply support the interest of the shareholder. Right. There was a broader requirement and responsibility to the stakeholders, whether they be internal employees, suppliers, even customers. And with that, we decided that there's an opportunity in Asia to get in front of it instead of being reactive. So we put together a council with the Conference Board and the Center for Creative Leadership called the Asia Corporate Leadership Council to actually approach these issues, research them, and generate for our council members insights that allow them to get ahead of this.
Wow, that sounds very progressive. Yeah, and the kind of deep conversations that you're having with business executives, that's how we work, of course, where organizations want to step away with their teams and think about their future strategies, about managing today but with an eye to the future, making sure that they have good, solid, sustainable businesses for the future to manage.
That's right. And I think with this idea of can profit and purpose coexist is extremely interesting, only because it's now been proven that, in fact, you can profit and have purpose. You don't have to trade off one for the other. Now, a lot of organizations don't do that, don't know that, but and also a lot of organizations haven't invested in what it takes to get there. That's the purpose of the council. That's where we're spending our time and energy. And this is where we want to have discussions with companies around the region.
Sounds really good. Great. Before you go, you mentioned you are writing a book.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, this is a bit of a different take, boys. So I noticed in my 10 years as a headhunter, working with Heidrich and others, I was seeing lots of senior executives come through my office who were either dying, they were in soul-sucking experiences, they'd run the gauntlet and done as much as they felt they could, or they were being pushed into retirement. Yeah. And so much talent is available and drifting off to the golf course that I decided it's time to write a book about what I call crossing the threshold. What can you do to actually reinvent yourself in your late 50s, come out the other end, and create a venture or explore a new opportunity that you never thought possible before. So the book's about that. I'm just finishing up some of the case studies. Hope to come out with it later this year. But we'll be building different retreats and bringing executives off to wonderful locations to really reboot and rethink their lives and their professions.
Great. It's always good to see you. You kind of re-energize me every time I talk to you. It's great.
And you, me. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Steve. See you soon.